Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the B Team on Jackrabbit Illustrated. Of course, Jackrabbit Illustrated Facebook, Jackrabbit Illustrated Twitter, and of course, the FFN YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. As always, Jackrabbit Illustrated is proud to have its title sponsor be the Kubota Dealers of South Dakota. With 10 different locations across the great state of South Dakota, there's always a dealer near you to get you into some orange equipment with parts, sales, and service. Everything from UTVs down to bobcats to any equipment you might need for your farm, ranch, or acreage. Go to Kubota Dealers of South Dakota to get yourself into some orange equipment today. We are also brought to you, the B Team, specifically by our show sponsor, Culver's of Brookings and Watertown. I went there for the Curter Burger with Chad, but those things are so gosh darn popular, they got wiped out, so we didn't get to have a Curter Burger. But I did have one earlier in the week because when it's a big game like Hobo Day or Marker Week, I make sure to go to our sponsors. We appreciate all of you who go to our sponsors, but get down to Culver's of Brookings and Watertown, where a better brand of beef makes a Butterburger better. Culver's something delicious. I don't know what their new one is.
Welcome to delicious.
Welcome to delicious. Whatever. They should have stuck with a better brand of beef makes a Butterburger better, because that will be
that is way better.
It'll be imprinted in my mind until the day I die. I heard that so many times as a kid growing up. They also have their delicious custards and concretes. You got to get in for those. Those are the best. Always get some ice cream, some soft serve custard. It's not ice cream when you're there, and it is fantastic. So beyond that,
I should have grabbed some Scoopy tokens there when I could.
You didn't?
He was there.
I feel like he did that on purpose.
That was on purpose. What a weenie.
I'll get him.
God, what? I'm never getting Scoopy tokens, and I am sad. It is very sad. But we are not sad because we are very excited. It is Marker Week, our favorite show of the year. Our annual guest, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the head of FFN, Mr. Matthew Fraase. Thank you so much for joining us again, my man. Thank you for all the plugs on the FFN pod. If you haven't listened to it yet, you absolutely should. The FCS Fans Nation on YouTube, I highly recommend it. They also have the FCS Fans Nation Gold package for a whopping $12, and you can watch it without any commercials on Patreon, which is totally worth it. Or you can just wait until later in the week and catch it on, I think Wednesdays is when it drops on the podcast form. But Matt, thank you so much for joining you. We love having you. This is our favorite episode every year because you're here and it's the Marker Week. It doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah, this is a tradition I insanely look forward to. First off, thanks for having me. It's nice to be home for this one. I was in a military barracks when I did this last year, so come high or hell water, I'm going to make this thing happen. And it's just so much fun to hop on with you guys. I think the spring season, Brennan, was our first meeting when I had to bow down to you after a freshman, Mark Gronowski, took the Bison down in the Dome. And I got a lot of love coming, hopefully, in the comments. I've met a lot of those SDSU fans throughout my time. I will say this, since I've come on to this show and since I've made predictions for the Marker, SDSU is undefeated. So as long as I keep rolling in here, your Jackrabbit Nation should be pretty happy. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about what I think is, we've said in the past, the most anticipated matchup between these teams. I don't know if things for the Marker specifically get much bigger than this season. So I'm really excited to talk about it, and I appreciate you guys having me on. Let's have some fun.
Well, I always remember that video. It pops up from time to time. I feel bad. I was not very gracious in that video, and you, as always, are more gracious than anyone I've ever met. But yeah, couldn't be a bigger matchup. 1 versus 2 again happens all the time, and it all the time happens regularly. I think I was looking back. I think this is going on maybe 10 years in a row. At least 6 years in a row where this has been a top 10 matchup, which is part of why it is the greatest rivalry in FCS. Sorry, Montana and Montana State fans. You're not. Be better, and then maybe you can be part of it. You can be considered that, but until you both matter, then it doesn't matter. So maybe you do need Montana to be good for me to not talk crap. We do, of course, have to do our quick rundown of the Youngstown State Hobo Day game. Hobo Day was a ton of fun. That was just a blast as always. Per protocol, the stadium was full, and then at least that many people were in the bars in downtown Brookings, possibly more. Just all celebrating a huge game. Tailgating was a blast. Always is. The Hobo Day tailgate just has a different feel. It has a different flow. I had to run down to the parade, which I don't love doing, but it was Zena's first Hobo Day parade, so I had to be down. Had to go, otherwise I was gonna be a bad guy. So went down to that, and it was funny leading up to the Hobo Day game. Tommy, our buddy, he's looking at his phone going, "I don't have service." I'm like, "Well, that's because everybody's showing up and your Verizon towers are overloaded, just like every Hobo Day. You live here, you should know this."
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. How was tailgate for you guys?
Tailgate was great. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
No, you're good. It was a blast. I couldn't believe how many people were waiting for food at the alumni tent. I think there were some people that maybe hadn't come to Hobo Day in a while, and they tried to rely on the alumni tent for food, and man, there was a long line. But looked like they got everybody fed. We had a good time at our tailgate. I will recommend, do not try to drive after the parade. I had to.
This is not news. You leave before it's over, so that you can drive.
I had to go pick somebody up, and that was Brookings is not made to have. I don't know. They say like there's 100,000 people in town or whatever, which I believe it. Those streets were lined for that parade, but no, it was a blast. Had a great time at the parade. Great time at the tailgate. Chad, what do you got?
I went down to the parade, dropped off the wife, had to get some parenting devices for Xena, and got back to the tailgate.
Yep,
I walked the entire parade route back down to downtown. My calves still hurt yesterday, or not my calves, my shins actually. And I got a ride from Dan. Dan, you're a stud. I know he watches this podcast at the time. Gave me and my wife a ride back. So I got back to the Union, the old Union, the Union, and then kind of bopped over to our tailgate. I was actually really surprised because I was one of the last people to leave tailgate. And imagine my surprise, even though, thank you to Tim Goldhammer down here in the chat. He helped me get into the stadium a little quicker. But I was really surprised that Brendan wasn't there when I got there. As it turns out, that was a thing. And,
I have thoughts on that. Matt, sorry, you're gonna have to witness a rant. I'm pretty pissed off about it.
I'll just tee it up for you. How's that sound?
Yeah, since it's on a tee, I might as well swing, not to be negative, because everything else about the game was fantastic. But I'm not sure if they used a different security. Oh God, he's got the timer up. I don't know if they used a different security outfit this time. It's the first time I've really noticed, an outside security firm doing checks and stuff. But here's the deal. Matt, you're well aware. You've brought young kids to games. Ben, you've brought young kids games. As a parent, you go through thoroughly at the beginning of the season what you're allowed and not allowed to bring. It is already obnoxious that we are not allowed diaper bags, and you're only allowed little plastic clear bags. That is obnoxious and incredibly cumbersome and makes it very difficult to go to a game with a small child, but we make it work. But then what you absolutely explicitly cannot do, you can't do it, is change the rules midstream before one of the highest anticipated and most attended games in the year, and change rules. When we were able to walk in, we've obviously gone to every game for years. We're able to walk in with a stroller for the first part of the season, and all of a sudden some lady on a power trip comes out and says it's a fire hazard. When we've been going for so long, there's gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of ADA compliant seating all the way around. It's the whole railing, the whole way around the stadium. Nobody's ever had a problem with a stroller being there and us sitting there. It's not a fire hazard. It's out of the way. Somebody decided in their infinite wisdom that that's a fire hazard. Fine. If you're going to do that, you have to change it next year. You don't get to change it midstream. You don't get to hassle people at the door. We want these people going to games. I'm going to go to games anyways. We're huge fans, obviously. But it's already a problem. Your mothers and family rooms are already subpar at best. You have terrible facilities for mothers who are nursing and pumping and things like that. They're awful. It's just a bare concrete room with maybe a chair. There's women sitting on the floor in there. It's embarrassing. Then the family bathroom is always used by gaggles of college girls so that the line is 10 miles long for moms trying to get in there and change babies so they don't have to change them in the stands. Now you're adding this on top of it and changing rigs midstream. It is ridiculous. We need to take care, and it's not about me. You need the fan base to keep growing. You want people to keep coming with their kids, their young children. You can't make it difficult for them. What the hell are we doing? And I'm assuming, because I don't remember seeing this company before checking people at the gate.
Yeah, it used to be Signal 88. This was a different outfit.
Yeah, this was a different company, and they thought they were super important. And she talked to Robbie, who said it was I don't know who the hell Robbie is. Nobody knows who Robbie is. I know who Justin Sell is.
Yeah, and he actually knows who you are, too.
Well, I wasn't going to do that, but, Jesus Christ, Yeah, and Austin says, dads change babies, too. Like, the Dana is a gorgeous facility, and I love a lot of things with game day, but you can't be changing stuff like that midstream on people, because it's already enough of a hassle tearing down the tailgate. You got your kid ready. You're getting everything ready. You get all the way up to the gate, and then you get told by someone with an attitude, whose attitude changes heavily, by the way, when someone behind you pulls a camera out and starts recording. All of a sudden, she becomes much nicer. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And you know what? If you don't want to allow strollers, that's fine. You can't change it mid-season. People are already a routine. Now, it's not just some simple thing that you just wander back with the stroller. A lot of people, if we parked over by Hanson, oh my God, what a nightmare that would have been. I'd have really lost my mind. That's ridiculous. And then the other little thing, when the team runs out on the field, can we get the pyrotechnics synced up with the music?
Or work at all?
Right.
Like, sometimes they don't even go off.
I think we made it before the timer reset. Pretty good show.
But anyways, sorry about that. That just,
you had us all worked up inside. Like, we were all ready to go down there and like nail that lady to the cross for doing that. Like, figuratively, obviously, but I promise you, Ariel is the most detail planning oriented person on the planet. She's got the bags packed on Thursday for the game. She went through that policy with a fine-tooth comb, and I questioned her. Really? We're allowed strollers? Absolutely. And then we go to a couple games and they allow it, and then all of a sudden you decide to change it because what? Just good Lord. It's just, anyways, we're here for you, moms. We're fighting. But I like Andrew Markham there. He's like rabbits for moms on a t-shirt. Andrew Markham, great dude. Thanks for joining us. We know that you're always on Matt's podcast, so awesome.
Yeah, things are pretty good in Brookings, but as we were talking with the offense last week, we're striving for excellence here. Yes, obviously, a couple things we can improve on. The pyrotechnics, those need to work. They haven't. I don't know if I've ever seen them be successful since we've started pyrotechnics. So
are they? Aren't they just smoke though? Like CO2
no, they're supposed to be like cold sparks, look like sparks, but they just
hard to see them from my corner. Honestly.
They don't work real well. The other stupid thing was they said that Madera opened at 11 and the other road closed at 11. So I went on the Madera way at 11:15 and tried to get in, and they said nope, you have to go around. And I'm like, but the other road's closed. It's after 11. She's like, well, this is what I was told. But anyway, pain.
Matt, we know you guys love your tailgating experience, getting into a lot, waiting to get into another lot up there.
Just,
so
there's a difference between, when it's hard for toddlers to attend the game and the adults are also treated like toddlers. That just is a deadly combo in Fargo.
Yeah.
It's just a deadly thing. But I will say to your thing, Thumper, is that is a big thing in terms of attendance. You talked about like, this is what we need to do for the future. This isn't the whole cause of Fargo issues, but a lot of us who at the beginning of the dynasty, we were newly married, far down dating, college range, and now we're all mostly 2 kids, 3 kids. We're in the toughest toddler activity kind of stage, and Fargo and the Bison have done nothing to help or increase that for families and others. There's not Wi-Fi in the domes. Not that you should stick your kid on an iPad, but it's not easy to get through the metal detectors. There's specific timing. Games are always kicked off at nap time. Like there's no real prices haven't gone down. There's no family deals. So just to bounce off what you're saying, there is legitimacy to it. If you want to keep people in the stands, football games should be family friendly. So I like the rant. Well said.
Well, I do want to give props. There are 2 things that we do actually very well. The Junior Jacks program is phenomenal. And that is, it's changed a little bit. It's had to evolve with the popularity of football growing and everything, but it essentially gets you into every single game that's SDSU athletics related. Besides football games, I think they get a reduced season ticket for a Junior Jack if you have a Junior Jack membership next to your seats. And then I think it was Ben, $50 for the year. So it used to come with all the football games, but they halved the price. It was $100 with all the football games. Now they halved it, and then you have to get a season ticket. And then the other thing they did, they've added more cell phone towers this year, and I have not heard a single peep. And obviously, being an outdoor stadium, Wi-Fi isn't necessarily as important as cell phone coverage. So adding that is basically kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the dome, you don't get cell phone service, so Wi-Fi is a huge deal. And they did a great job at upping that. That was fantastic. So, I want to give props to the athletic department there. Where when I'm having my complaints, I should acknowledge the things that have gone well from that standpoint, and those are 2 of them that I think are fantastic.
I would give them some credit to somewhat against your point, Ben. Sorry, but they have augmented the flow into tailgating early on. They had people there early so we could get in and set our stuff down so we could go to the parade.
Oh yeah,
that makes it family friendly, and that's a great deal. I think we need to continue doing that. And those of you in the athletic department that listen to us when we say those kind of things, thank you. Everybody appreciates it. We really do. A little bit goes a long ways.
Yes, that was really nice. It was super nice for us to be able to, get set up and everything without much of a hassle, and everything worked out great.
Matt, if you want to read John's question here, he says, are your tailgate rules as strict as ours at SDSU? 5 hours before, no tailgating during or after the game. Security is very strict. I will say, John, that is not an SDSU decision. That's a Board of Regents decision. Yeah. And so we are tied, or SDSU's hands are tied there. But
what's Matt, funny is USD hasn't exactly followed that, and it doesn't seem to matter. Well, so just going to throw that out there.
Well, why would you get worked up about 35 people breaking the rules?
Beat me to it. No, to answer John's question, that's a carbon copy. It's the city of Fargo, not NDSU. 6 hours before is when you can get in. 30 minutes prior to the game, you have to have trash bagged up and rig taken down. So you got to have like the tent, like you have to have it down. And then you can't go back out, and then there's no post game anything out there. So yeah, it's very contained, if you will. So a lot of Bison fans, obviously they've been to Colorado, they've been to Iowa, they go to those FBS games. It's their big thing, and you hear it right when they come back. Man, that school does it right. People are just in lawns and they do this, but I don't know. We'll see if the city of Fargo ever adjusts. But right now, it's a city policy, so very relatable.
Well. And actually, fortunately for us, we're actually probably more fortunate than you guys are, because the backyard is allowed to keep their stuff there in the backyard on the north side of the stadium. I will say, too, John, that the north side is far heavier police presence than the southwest little corner that we're in, which is part of why we love it, because our people are friends. Yeah, sometimes Jim, they wag a finger at us because we're being naughty, but they're pretty understanding.
Jim, with the re-entry thing, I don't know if that's a Board of Regents thing. I was more talking about the timing of when you can and can't tailgate, but I don't know if the re-entry thing is a university thing or not. But we should probably quickly recap the Hobo Day game that happened outside of all the festivities. I mean, it is like.
We made pillows.
It makes sense. Yeah, we did. It makes sense to talk about all this
Out of
extra
feathers.
stuff because it's kind of what Hobo Day is. There's so much extra stuff going on outside of the game. But the game itself, yes, was a penguin kicking. We got the 50 Butterburger that we wanted. We knew once we were scoring pretty early and often that it was a high chance, and we did that. It was great to see the offense kind of humming. We'd been looking for that for a while now, and we've said they've had signs of it, but they were really kind of kicking on all cylinders this game. So that was really good to see. Obviously, the opening kickoff was just great. I mean, to start off Hobo Day that way was so sweet. And Angel Johnson, he's a special player, and I think he's going to be him and Dallas Beanham on returns are players to watch for the marker game. We can talk about that later, but we can ask Matt later how the cover teams are for NDSU, but they are both if they get an opportunity to return the ball, watch out. They are insanely fast and just have a knack for finding open creases. But yeah, after the opening kickoff, it was pretty smooth sailing. Fun to see Chase Mason get some big plays. He's been getting integrated. He's had some runs where you could kind of tell that he was trying to figure out maybe how to be a running back almost. Where he's played quarterback his whole career. And right now he's playing this more almost running back role for us. And man, he is fast, and he a couple of those runs, it just seeing that large of a human running that fast is just kind of, I don't know, you just kind of get awestruck when you see it, honestly.
This game from a rushing standpoint has some of the silliest stats I've ever seen. When as a team you average 16.2 yards per carry, you rush the ball 25 times for 406 yards. It's just dumb. I don't think we've put those numbers up on a Pioneer team in a long time. It was nutty. I mean, Chase, your worst running back performance is Amar Johnson at 8 yards a carry. That was the worst. I mean, and then after there, it's 10.6 for Mark, 14 for Angel Johnson, 28 for Kirby Voorhees, and 32.2 for Chase Mason. I mean, I don't. What else is there, to talk about? It looked fantastic. The Hogs were hogging. They were getting after it and banging them out. Yeah, Chad squinting and giggling at the comments is the best. It's my favorite too. We need to get you a monocle. That's what we need to get you.
I actually have.
Yar. Baby Chad, the producer. Yar.
I have a 50-inch monitor that I'm going to hook up here, so hopefully I can see a little better with that.
But yeah, the game, we talked about before the game that, Youngstown State would have to just dominate the time of possession. The crazy thing is they did. They had 40 minutes of time of possession in this game, and they lost 63-13. It's kind of wild. The offense was just absolutely explosive. Credit to Bo Brungard. I was really impressed with him.
It's good.
He was slippery, and if you thought you had pressure on him, you didn't. And he was able to get away and either scramble for a first down or find an open guy. And he made some nice downfield throws too. It'll be interesting to see what he does going forward. But bright spot for them for sure. Outside of that, they've got some issues on defense. Obviously, they've given up a lot of points this year and gave up a lot of points to us. But again, it was good to see the offense get going. And it was nice. I mean, we talked about, potential trap game. It obviously turned out to not end up being that. I think they used it as more of a tune-up game to get right before going up to Fargo. So yeah, any more to say about this game for now?
It was wild that, they ran 60 some plays, 61 plays to our 36. That's crazy. But also, when you're getting like 20 yards of play, that's going to happen. But I think that if they keep Brungard around, he's only a sophomore. They could be a very dangerous team as long as they keep him. I do hope they keep him around. It'll be good for the conference to have Youngstown bounce back. I do think they'll probably bounce back next year as long as they don't get slaughtered by the portal again. Defensively, there was definitely some things that made you go, yeesh. But I think some of that, I think they got a little bit loose with the blowout. And then, Mark wasn't bad, but he's not fully sharp yet. It feels a little bit like, I think, what was it, towards the second half of his freshman year for a while, where he was just missing those post routes and stuff that he's so money on most of the time. He hasn't quite dialed that in with Griffin and Graham yet. He hit a couple of them, which is great. But it's getting there. We're gonna need him. We are gonna need him in Fargo, because I can guarantee you one thing. I'm pretty much 99% sure Tim Polasek wants Mark to throw to beat him instead of, the run game's incredible. And he's probably going to have some more pressure in his face than normal facing that NDSU front seven. So it is going to be
twins.
Yeah. So it's going to be a big thing going into that one.
One more thing on this game. I think, the defense is obviously still looking amazing. They gave up, I think the most frustrating thing about the defense was they gave up some 3rd and longs, in which, again, it's hard to tell if, was that the opponent, they were a little lax a little bit. And we do play that bend, don't break defense, right? We don't want people making deep shots on us. And so we'll allow that underneath stuff and rely on rallying to the ball. So I'm not too alarmed by it. I think we'll be all right. But yeah, I think we can move on from this one. It was a very fun game. Scored 63 points. Can never complain about that.
Nope. And Mr. Frase's team had a pretty good game last week. Maybe you can give us a real brief recap on that, because you guys look pretty sharp.
Yeah, NDSU is playing pretty well in the conference play. Not gonna lie. Southern Illinois, I tweeted it out. Carbondale's weird for NDSU. We have like one blowout win there in its entire history. So, and if you go on Bison's website, it goes back to 1963, and even that game was close. So, I don't know what it was down there, but yeah, I see here Terry mentioning about Cam Miller's injury. You could definitely see that Cam's mobility to move up in the pocket or shift out was certainly a little limited. So he was definitely not 100% with that low ankle in that game. What most impressed me about it really was the Code Green defense. And it's kind of unfair. SIU was on their 3rd string quarterback. I think, unless I'm mistaken, he's now also injured and could be out for the year. SIU was down a lot of starters. So it's good to get the win down there. I think anytime you go down to SIU, it's fun to get that victory. Kind of like maybe if you go to UNI, you're like, okay, I don't care how bad UNI is. I'm just glad we went there and you guys kicked their cans this year. So I think that's how we were feeling. And I think most Bison fans were like, can we please just put this away and get to next week? And I'm glad the team didn't think like that. So yeah, it looked good. 24-3 for a final over SIU.
Were you surprised that they played Cam and kept him in the whole game?
I wasn't as surprised, I think, as most people. I think fans like to sometimes believe things are like Madden, where you can just like park a depth chart and adjust a guy and click. First off, you got to keep Cam out, and I don't know if that's easy. Polisek's kind of.
And then who's going to throw the ball?
Yeah, that's true. Like, that's the thing. They're like, well, we could have beat SIU with Cole. Well, could you have? Because Cam was responsible for 2 touchdowns, within that game. And is the offense moving the way it's supposed to? And this is where I'm going to come to Cam Miller defense. And I've got the receipts from 4 years ago defending him. You want to see why I think he should be highly in that at least top 2 Walter Payton conversation? Watch what happens to this incredible Bison offense people are cheering about when it's not him for multiple series. Just watch it completely shut down. And that's exactly what would happen. And you go to SIU and Carbondale, they know you want to run the ball. I don't know if that's a recipe for a guaranteed victory, even with the defense playing that well. So, yeah, I think you keep Cam Miller in there if he's healthy enough to play, and we're going to see what this week's brings. Paulsek did say that he was pretty bummed up last week when he did play, and he's feeling better now moving towards the marker. But I doubt he's at 100%, to be honest with you. So, and that's
that's going to be a huge point of the game is how mobile he's able to be. I think that's going to be massive.
Absolutely. I think that is the injury bug within NDSU right now, and Cam Miller's health, I think, is a huge determining factor in the outcome of this game. So I'm sure we'll get into like the matchups and the styles, but defensive line getting to Gronowski or getting to Cam and those impacts, I kind of thought about it when I was looking through all the statistics. I'm like, man, what is the thing? Like when you look at this game, you're like, man, what is the thing if I had to pick one? And I think it's D-line pressure on the quarterbacks. I think stop the run, of course, right? Stop the run. But Gronowski throws 18 times and Cam Miller throws 18 times. Who's going to really get that pressure on the quarterback to kind of throw off the rhythm of an offense a little bit? I think that's a pretty important factor for this game. So should be fun to see.
100%. Just to address, I think Taylor Murray asks, it's sold out, right? Yes. I believe enough SDSU fans bought tickets so that they could sell out this game.
It's
we had to hear it for so long. We had to say it back. Yeah.
Well, we used to do the green dot things. You guys really take me back on Twitter. You do the green dot checks, and I was like, oh, it's like 2014. It kind of throws me back. I'm like,
the green dot tracker.
I remember doing that.
Green dot does it for other fan bases as well now.
Yeah.
So
now in Fargo, it's the gray dot. We're like, oh, that's a lot of gray dots. There's a lot of open seats. So not for this game though, or UND. Those are sold out. So it's yeah. See, I figured this was coming. This coming. I'm like, now it's our turn to get it right.
Yeah. Right.
Now it's our Super Bowl. And can I address that real quick? Because
absolutely,
you're gosh darn right it is this time. Now it is. The last 3 years I've been like, whatever, Well, like Brennan said, we've been getting our ass kicked up and down the last 4 years. And it's not just football. It's basketball. It's all these other things SDSU keeps winning. The athletic departments have flipped heavy. NDSU is still good and great, but not nearly as great as what the Jackrabbits have done. So the hate and discontent is there. Bison fans do not want to lose this game. And Brendan's
you get
theory,
sick of it, don't you?
Oh, yeah, it was a decade ago, but your theory was right. I give you all the kudos. Lose to us a few times in the playoffs. Let us win some championships. Don't have that marker for a while and see how it builds. And I tell you what, man, people in Fargo, they feel like it's now or never for this game. So it's going to be interesting. And I tweeted at Alex Kenkel, who's, amazing, in like March. I said, if the Bison can't get it done this year up in the Dome, it's almost like, well, when are they going to get it done? Who knows what next year brings? It's a whole new thing. Chase looks like the Trey Lance of SDSU, so that's not going to be great. So, you guys basically have your Easton stick right now, and then everyone's like, well, I'll wait for this next kid who's coming up. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really, really excited for it. And I haven't had jitters and excitement for this game, obviously, because you guys have been so good the last 2 years, but just in general, I thought it would kind of flip. But I don't know. I'm kind of embracing the can we get over the hump? Like, it hasn't been there for a while. So I'm excited for it. So bask in it, Brendan. It's all you, man.
It's really, really fun to chase. I do miss that sometimes. Chase is really fun. I do miss it.
But they still don't know what it's like to lose a semi or quarterfinal game to their rival.
Right. You've never had to come to Brookings and lose. And you know what, though? I will tell you, Matt, that if not now, when game happened to us at least 4 times. It had to happen at least 4 times. I think going back to the Zenner game. and then the Zenner game of the playoffs with Carson Wentz when he won that one. And, it happened. And then when Winicky and Christian were done, it was like, man, there was at least 3 times where you're like, God, what do we got to do? What do we got to do to get this done? So to be honest, because I love to revel in things. I really, really relish the idea of you guys having to feel that despair a couple times because it sucks so bad.
That's his 2014 game.
As Ben would know, I'm glad, if there's any fans here who know him, I'm glad the Dayseeker concert is after this game, because if the Bison lose, there's some real woe is me emo songs from that band. And it's just going to be, I'll be there.
He's just going to be in tears at the concert.
Yeah. And if I'm crying throughout it, people will be like, this guy loves this band. I'm like, no, we just can't beat the Jackrabbits. It is ironic. This is pretty. It's 8 years ago on my Facebook. It says right there, 8 years ago.
Yep.
Tim Polasek I posted this. Tim Polasek in the offense couldn't have played a more conservative game against a defense that gives up an average of 42 points per game. Don't blame the defense and give SDSU credit. I think that was 19 to 16. It was your last second touchdown throw in the dome.
Yep.
It was 19 to 16, right in front of me. Yep.
That's when that one played out. And I was like, I read that today on the memories. I'm like, well, I hope that's not true this year.
I won the
Poor Michael.
Poor Michael. You guys really losing that game is just yeah, sorry, buddy.
Your fandom chooses you, man. I can't tell you.
The interesting thing you talk about, what it was like and what it is like now. Another aspect is, we had those good teams once we started the playoff run, and we started making deeper and deeper runs, and we kept running into NDSU, and we're like, geez, we're just, we're never going to get past NDSU. And you guys were always kind of the thorn in our side, and it's kind of flipped now where, you look at, I tweeted out, Craig Haley sent out, how the last 12 losses for NDSU, 6 of them are to SDSU.
Yeah.
Which is just wild to think about. And, the implications of this game, and it's true again this year with the seeding, are you going to be able to host a semifinal game at your place? And this game goes a long way in determining that. And, for the longest time, we just couldn't do it. And, for the past few years, it's gone our way. And so, the shoe's on the other foot now, and it feels pretty good. It fits really well right now.
Well, it also didn't help that it used to be that we could have been the second best team in the country and still lose some games that we shouldn't have. And so we put ourselves in that situation a couple times.
Oh yeah, it wasn't
which I don't think you'll see this year unless for some ungodly reason that god awful maroon and gray flag gets the W this year versus the Bobcats. I just don't see it happening, honestly. I think they end up the 2. Unless USD beats us both, I guess. I don't know how that's going to happen, but
USD will be the remainder. And I said this on the podcast in January. I made the tag on the FCS Fans Nation podcast. I made the thumbnail, a Bison Bunny bout in 2024. And I was the one out there. What a bold prediction. 2023. I stood firm. I'm like, this season is a waste of time. I've seen 2013 NDSU, 2018 NDSU. It's what the Jacks are. Like, when Montana State almost got you, I was like, that was it. That was the only shot. That was the UNI game against NDSU in 2013. They're going to roll. And, but I felt like it would come down to where SDSU would come down a little bit, not a lot. NDSU would elevate, and there'd be an outlier. Well, it's kind of where we sit. Montana State is the outlier. Ron Lowry's going to murder me, but there has to be proof that they're going to take down one of these Dakotas. They could get one of us at MSU in the semifinal, but are you going to go to Frisco and beat the other one? I just think the implications actually for this game, I feel are, while it's one of the biggest ones because it's 1 versus 2 on ESPN, I think implications aren't that bad. I think SDSU, if they lose, are going to win the rest of their games. And I think NDSU, if they lose, will win the rest of their games. And I think that puts them at the 3 seed at worst because the other teams are going to lose. And a 3 seed at worst is going to send you to Brookings or MSU in a semifinal if they make it. So, I mean, that's not the worst case scenario. Bye, second round game, quarterfinal at home, 1 travel. It's not like your SDSU in 2021 running to Sac State all over the country. It's not like your NDSU last year going road game, road game, road game. So, of course, you'd rather be at home in the semi. But unlike other years, I don't know if the implications are as much because I don't see a lot of the rest of the FCS competing against these 2 squads on a week-to-week basis. Besides Montana State's probably the only one right now really I put fear factor into. So
we'll see. I mean, unless something weird happens with Montana State or, if USD...
Davis ain't going to beat them.
Yeah, I don't think so. Or unless USD can knock off either SDSU or NDSU. The interesting thing about this game is that, it could end up leading where the winner ends up hosting the loser in the semifinals.
Yep.
That's a very strong possibility. So it's kind of fun to look forward to that. But we got to talk about the game at hand first, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I was looking at, for this game, because historically, Mark Gronowski has been the start of this. He was there at the beginning when this happened in 2020. And then 2021, Chris Oldokin wins in Brookings. And then Mark has to go back to Fargo again, wins in Fargo. Then he has to play. Then he finally gets a home game where he gets to face NDSU at home, and then he has to face them in Frisco for one of them. So he will end up leaving SDSU because he said this is his last year, having played 3 marker games in Fargo and then 1 at a neutral site against NDSU, and then only 1 marker game at home. And he is guaranteed a winning record doing that. And that is unbelievable for Mark and says a lot about him and the effect he's had on this program. But I wanted to go through and I was like, well, what are his stats? What were his stats in those marker games and everything? In 2020, he was 10 for 14 for 149 yards, 1 touchdown. He ran 16 times for 130. And that was the year where he really was more, he ran as much as he threw, which is kind of a natural progression for young quarterbacks. 2022 comes back off the injury, 16 for 21 for 152 yards, no touchdowns, 9 rushing attempts for 25 yards. The 2022 Natty, that's when he really kicked off. He went 14-21 for 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then 5 rushes and 1 touchdown. And then last year at home, he was 12-19 for 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he only ran for 20 yards. So realistically, Mark has never had to put up massive numbers in these games. But I think if you look back at and listening to like Dom Izzo, man, I cannot believe. Well, I can believe it because not necessarily you, Matt, but NDSU fans have this unique ability to pick one thing and fixate on it for decades and never let it go. You go back to the fumble in Eastern Washington before the run. We'd had one
come on.
Like
the push off, the ankle twist.
Barely gone.
Just start naming them.
Man, they were really tore up about they brought up the personal foul against Cam Miller, which I think that's been debated to death, but yep, it's been done over and over and over again.
He did it like
talked
this.
To death, but man, yes, that penalty was big, but still, Mark had to lead him back from 14 down in the Fargo Dome.
That wasn't a penalty. It wasn't a penalty in the 4th quarter on the game-winning throw. It was in the second quarter.
Right.
Right. NDSU score a freaking point in the second. Score 4. You can't score 4 points. Get 2 safeties, I guess. Kick 2 field goals in the second half, and you win the game. So lose me.
It was a momentum changing.
And that's what Bison fans say. It changed all the momentum. Okay, coaches and team, get it together.
Yes.
I don't know. That to me is like, sorry, Vikings fans out there. It's like, Gary Anderson. Well, the game still went to overtime. It wasn't the total end all. That's a different subject, though. We'll get people.
Well, that's a
worked up.
very Viking. I do make this correlation a lot on this show between a area's pro sport fandom bleeds into their other fandom, and Vikings fans fixate very heavily on bad calls that screwed them, and we got screwed by the officials on average, and fixate on things similarly. And there's a fair amount of Vikings fans here, but in NDSU country, it's almost all Vikings fans up there, and I think that bleeds over a little bit into that, which is really a nonsensical point. I don't know why I bring that up. I just wanted to hear myself talk and maybe make Ben a little bit
poor
irritated.
Ben's the only Vikings fan on this
You
podcast.
just wanted to take a jab at the Vikings fan.
What?
Matt,
No.
I mean, we can bring up the Cowboys if we want to be mean.
No, Matt is nice. He came on here. My wife is listening.
Hi, Ariel.
Very nice.
Let's answer Jordan's comment here. Matt, how much of a loss is the Hendricks kid from the D line? I feel like the Jacks interior line has the edge, and him not playing makes it more of an advantage. See a lot of runs up the gut.
Yeah, it's a big loss. He's had some injuries here the last couple of years, so being able to stay on the field consistently hasn't been true. But that doesn't mean we'll be fine without him. The youth of NDSU's front seven is starting to show a little bit, especially in the defensive line. Some of the younger guys and cats are really getting at it. NDSU really had a problem those first few weeks, and Coach Grant Olson, former player there, and Tim Paulsek kind of addressed this. We're going to get back to basics is kind of what they said. They didn't say like high school and all this, but that tweak and adjustment to where NDSU now is really playing better against the run and holding teams to kind of more of that slow anaconda strangle is defensive linemen just beating their guy. Linebackers, blitz here, stay here, cover this. Like the overcomplication is gone. They said that in press conference. We're going back down to the basics of do your job. And it has shown. It kind of shows that Bison defensive discipline of, hey, this team anticipates getting 5 yards a rush. Well, when they're only getting 2.5 to 3, that throws them off just a little bit. It's like a slow strangle, right? So Hendricks is a big loss. The Bison injury bug, the portal bug previously has been big this year. But I think where NDSU is starting to click so well defensively is finally what Coach Grant Olson wants to put in is working really well with the talent that's had to step up. And it's starting to gain a little bit of momentum. They're playing really well as a unit. Is the individual talent there to where they're going to look like world beaters and just hold SDSU this game? No, it isn't there. But there's a lot of guys, like I think about like a Sam Young who had to step in for Cole Winniski. That's a senior guy who's like never seen the field, and he leads the team in tackles. Is he the most talented guy on the field? No, but he kind of reminds you of those 2012, 2011 players, these North Dakota farm kids that had to just grow in the program and develop. So to his initial question on the defensive line, I think SDSU is going to get their punches, but it's not going to look like the last 2 years where almost the NDSU defense looked unrecognizable. I think that's kind of my takeaway of what it's going to look like. And my question back to you guys would be, is that SDSU offensive line starting to feel like that turning hog machine the way it used to be? And I'm not saying you can just discount YSU. What you guys did was incredible, but even prior to that, were you starting to feel good about that offensive line? Because last year was just unfair. I mean, it was insane.
I think, honestly, it harkens back to when you're on here in 2021. If I'm NDSU, I'm much happier to face us right now. Injuries, if you take injuries out of the equation, I think you wanted to face this squad way earlier in the year than you want to face them later.
Yeah.
Just the amount that they have improved over these 6 games has been really, really impressive, to the point that they were confident enough to have 7 offensive linemen on the field because they got some guys back healthy. We were down 2 starting O-linemen, and they were confident enough in the backups to start throwing them on there for 7-man O-line fronts for jumbo packages. I think are they there yet? I don't think they're near what the peak of their powers will be when they're in the postseason, but they're a force to be reckoned with right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're very good, and they've been getting better every game. One thing that is getting better that's making a huge difference in the run game is tight end blocking. We had a really good blocking tight end in Zach Hines and a good blocking fullback in Mike Morgan that left the program, and we've been trying to replace that. And we've got some receiving threats there, but I think they're learning the blocking side of the game, and we've seen some improvements there, which I think that was a bigger issue at the start of the season than the offensive line was. And so, yeah, I'm encouraged by that. But yeah, I mean, like every match, every Dakota Marker matchup there's ever been, this game will be won and lost in the trenches.
Yeah.
And honestly, with the way NDSU and SDSU have won championships, it's been in the trenches. Back when NDSU was dominating SDSU, we just didn't have the horses in the trenches that NDSU did. And we had to change the way that we recruited and developed kids, and we got it up to that level. And we got it deep enough where we could rotate guys and there wasn't to fall off. And that's how we started beating NDSU. And so that will stay true for this game 100%. It'll really come down to how our offensive line looks against NDSU's defensive line. Like you said, sounds like they're young and coming into their own. And the SDSU offensive line is also kind of similar that way too. So, that'll be a matchup to watch for sure.
I do think.
I
was just going to say, I think one thing when it comes to our offensive line that we haven't talked much about, that is kind of a piece that we just maybe don't completely understand how much we miss it, is the fact that Kevin Brenner's not been playing. And I think he brings a lot to that we, as the casual, so we're not casual fans, but we as the fan maybe don't quite see. I think we had a lot designed using his talents, and I think we've been missing that a bit. But yeah, back to your point, to your question, Matt, is our offensive line does seem to be gelling at the right moment. I hope that continues to be the case this week as well.
So here's the one thing that I think is hugely important when it comes to the line is how will they handle the crowd noise? Going back to, that 20, what was it? The 22 game, I think, is the one that we came back in. That game, part of what killed the offense and why this offense feels similar to that offense, where it came along and then by the playoffs it was a machine, but throughout the year it was all right. Well, we got to get this going. All right, we're not quite there. Last year's offense, they could take a penalty and overcome it, even in any game of any magnitude. They were just that good. This year, where the offense sits right now, they can't afford to get a false start penalty and then overcome it or get two of them. And you look back to that game, that first half, part of what put SDSU behind was they false started like 4 or 5 times in that first half and couldn't get anything done on offense because they were so far behind the chains. And you can't do that in Fargo against a good NDSU team. And that is going to be one of my concerns. Will they be able to hold their water and not jump off sides in that noise? Because, we played at Oklahoma State, but that wasn't a frothed up Oklahoma State. That was a Oklahoma State that was playing an FCS team and was winning fairly comfortably the whole time. So will they handle the noise well with a new O-line unit is a major concern of mine. And not just how will they handle it, will they still be able to get off the ball with the appropriate speed, or is that NDSU line going to have a speed advantage on them with their youth when they get off the ball if they're slow because of the noise?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors to this. What Seth is saying here and what Jordan said previously, the Jordan Fink, over the 5-game win streak, he says, I think it's like 9 NDSU turnovers to 0 for NDSU. Yeah, that was the bonker stuff and that is so huge. NDSU has forced nothing of South Dakota State for turnovers in these matchups, and NDSU has turned the ball over and over again. I've been saying to people this week, I feel like if Cam Miller throws his first pick here, like in the first quarter, the dome's going to go like it's going to be, that to me could be a very big momentum shift is, oh my gosh, the turnover thing again. And the turnover things have been shocking. Like when you look at, if I can just kind of go on a roll here, it's kind of the stuff I looked up for the podcast. You look at NDSU and or if you just name it off, like passing yards and touchdowns for quarterback, 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, no picks. A running back with 544 yards, 4.7 to carry, receiver with 418 receiving yards. You know, that's NDSU right now. Like that offense, that feels like Mark Gronowski and Isaiah Davis, you know, comping on that. And I was shocked to see Mark Gronowski. I don't know where they've been, but maybe ESPN, I don't know if it's dated or not, but 1,100 passing yards, 11 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions was shocking to me. And Amar Johnson with 480 yards is doing his thing. And Griffin with 407. Boy, that kid, he's really coming along. But you guys have you have the weirdest offensive FCS stats in the history of humanity. And let me explain. This is the strangest thing I've ever heard in my life. You ready? Unless it's wrong on the official site, the rushing offense for the Jackrabbits is 6th in the country, which is not shocking. Your passing offense is 69th. Not nice, but
Nice.
okay. So remember that. Rushing offense 6, passing offense 69th in the country. Time of possession, unless this is wrong and it's on the official site, is 81st. Are you the fastest scoring rushing offense in the history of football?
I can explain.
You run the ball. You're number 6 in rushing, but damn, you don't have that ball more than 40 seconds a run.
Well,
or what?
Kirby Voorhees won one of the games against Southeastern Louisiana, had a touchdown on every run except for 2 of them. He ran the ball 5 times. His shortest run was 18 yards. This last game, we went through those rushing statistics. Then the UNI game, I don't think we won time of possession there either because we had a bunch of huge runs.
And turnovers.
And turnovers with short fields. So we didn't have the ball very long there because we turned them over 5 times. And most of the time we're on their side of the 50. So yeah, that does make for a unique scenario, but yeah, we have scored incredibly quickly. I pointed out
Jimmy Rogers' playbook. Oh, in your guys' playbook where it says, like, you know, the Madden play, it says Hail Mary where it's 4 arrows, where you have that, but it's just the running back.
It's just a dive.
Just a running back. And everyone else is just no route. Because
that's what the Southeastern Louisiana game was. They handed it to Kirby Truck and Voorhees, and he housed it.
Gone.
And every time it would, and defender. That is one that is just listening to Dom Izzo and those guys for the last couple days, because that's when I listen to keep up with those guys. Haven't gotten to Bison 1660 yet, which I will always thank for my tickets to that 2019 game. I appreciate getting those. Actually, thank you to the angel who was running that ticket giveaway, because she saw me and she goes, SDSU. I said, yeah. She goes, how do you spell your last name? And I said, this way. And she goes, I said, why? And she goes, well, I'm not wearing bright blue pants for nothing. Go Jacks. And then I ended up winning the drawing. I'm not saying it was rigged. I'm just saying it was pretty great that I won.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was talking about.
ADD kicked in. You were talking about our time of possession.
Oh yeah,
that's all.
Kirby Voorhees is one that has gotten kind of passed over a little bit, and understandably so. I mean, he's like 3rd string running back, and Amar has been the devil in marker games. He is just, I mean, he's shown every marker game, so I get the attention on him. But Kirby Voorhees, man, he is a guy who. He's the short yardage guy, and it was that week that Ben called out and said, man, we really need to find a short yardage kind of back. And that's what they used him for, but then he broke like 6 tackles a play and scored 60 to 80-yard touchdowns. He looked like Larry Zonka out there. And, Yeah, he's one to keep an eye out for, because if it's a short yardage situation, he proved extremely capable. If you are a little bit shaky on tackling, at turning it into a house call, because he's violent, but he's got the burst to run it in from a long ways out.
And he's
that's
also very good at following his blocks and waiting for the right moment to go upfield. Sorry.
And that's still kind of there. I'll be shocked if SDSU doesn't go 3 big runs, one that maybe goes for a touchdown, like, big run 25 yards, whatever, because even in the UND game, UND got a drive or two where they were able to pop off a bad tackle, a guy out of position. The NDSU defense is massively improved, but it's not what it was in the past. So SDSU is going to get their shots there. That will be opportunities for their offense. Some other things like total defense, Jack's at 12th, Bison at 14th. Rushing defense, Jack's at 9th, Bison at 16th. Passing yards allowed, Jack's at 48th, Bison at 42nd. Like, these teams are pretty evenly matched. Time of possession's an outlier. Obviously it's a funny stat, but SDSU is certainly capable of it. The Bison are second, though, in time of possession. I will say this, and it's what people have talked about most with NDSU. These are the things I'll be shocked by. If Cam Miller, even with the injury, doesn't look extremely efficient and effective, he has swagger this year I just haven't seen. He does, like Gronowski, Stick, these guys of the past. I mean, operational control over the huddle, kind of walks with that swag back up to the huddle after a play. He's not going to beat you deep. Cam Miller, I don't think he's nearly ever thrown deep balls. I can count him on one hand, but he's slicing in the middle. He's almost opposite of Trey Lance. Not going to get beat much with, Trey Lance would run or he'd go deep, but he can really throw over the middle of the field. And that's where Cam's been a surgeon. And people have not been talking about this with NDSU. They have not. That offensive line and pass protection, I kid you not, it might be one of the best I've seen. So if SDSU's defensive line gets pressure on Cam, that is a huge credit to you guys, because he's standing back there forever.
Yes.
I mean, forever he has time. And opponents, it was UND. I mean, ETSU, they're 19th in total offense. They're 36th in total defense. Like, they weren't a bad team, and he still had time. Colorado, tons of time. That was their first game. Those Bison Rams in pass protection are looking incredible. The one thing I will say too, this is what SDSU used for your guys' running backs to out recruit us and beat us, rightfully so. SDSU has done a really good job of thunder and lightning with those running backs, right? Get these guys their carries. I knew Polisek would bring that back. I didn't know they had the talent they have right now at youth, but the guy who reminds me of, dare I say it, like an Isaiah Davis bowling ball is absolutely, it's Tramar Brown, but it's Marty Brown. This guy is just, he's what I saw to Davis. We talked about it with you guys last year on your team. Okay, he's hit at 2 yards, 4.5. What? Oh, he's hit at 3, 5. Oh my gosh. Like, and then behind him coming in there is Barika Penne, and he's been great too. He's gone for 301 yards this year. They're both averaging over 4 yards a carry. And those guys are making things happen with their athleticism. We haven't had that, and I tweeted out, I think since probably 2018, Bruce Anderson, Lance Dunn. So if those things don't show, that is so telling of how good SDSU is, and how, what's the phrase? Whatever of our demise was greatly exaggerated. If like those two Bison running backs aren't making pops and plays, if Cam Miller's taking a lot of pressure, if that Bison defense is giving up big runs and time of possessions heavily on SDSU, you guys are in for probably a pretty hefty, easy title run. Because unlike the last 2 years where I've been very open and honest about how SDSU is going to kick our butts and the Bison don't look good, they look good right now. They look really good. They look like a team that could win, finally maybe get back and beat SDSU. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. But the Bison offense is clicking. And the last thing I will say is, this is one thing I want to brag about for Cam Miller on SDSU podcast, who I love Mark Gronowski. I've not been shy. He's my kind of quarterback. I believe he is that guy. But Cam Miller, how did you think how he would be this good? He lost Eli Green, the top receiver, to Iowa State in the portal from last year. Eli Green's gone. Poof. After Colorado, Braylon Henderson, Roger Nelson, the top 2 receivers are out with injury. He hasn't had either of them back the whole time. He's got one of them back for 1 game since Colorado, and he's elevated one Bryce Lance up to over 500 yards for the year.
Yep, he's looked good.
So, like, that is one thing I think people aren't talking about, Cam, is he's not out there with a consistent peer cast that he just knows and has. He's making these stats happen, and a lot of credit to the offensive coordinator. Jake Landry's really elevated him up. So it's gonna be fun in the Dome with what these teams are gonna bring.
I think the key to Cam Miller's success so far has been, like you said, that offensive line that just hasn't allowed pressure on him.
Yep.
He's had time to sit back there and pick teams apart, had time to let routes develop over the middle of the field where he's had a lot of success. And that's really what I'm looking forward to seeing in this game is, I mean, just overall our defense against NDSU's offense, because we've been touting our defense as being championship level already. We think it's really, really, really good. And I'm really interested to see how they play against NDSU, but especially with Cam Miller's injury, I want to see how often we bring pressure. Because like you said, with NDSU's offensive line, I don't think you're going to get too much pressure without bringing a blitz. And if we let Cam Miller just pick us apart in the middle of the field, probably not going to be a good day for us. So I am really interested to see how often we bring pressure, if that pressure can get home, and then how mobile Cam Miller can be if there is pressure. Like we kind of saw in that against Southern Illinois that he had some issues with mobility. It'll be real interesting to see where he's at mobility wise against NDSU or SDSU. Because I think that's a huge key to the game is how mobile is he? How much pressure can SDSU get on him? Because if there is one weakness to the SDSU defense, I think it has been letting passes go in the middle of the field. It's been not getting home, sitting back. It's usually when they only rush 3 or 4 guys and they try to sit back in coverage and the routes develop too long and a guy gets loose over the middle of the field. That's what Cam Miller's absolutely fed on this year. And so that's a big thing to watch, in my opinion. Along with that, I think, you talked about the success that they'll have moving the ball. And one thing I think that is another key is just, will those drives result in touchdowns or field goals? The red zone efficiency is just going to be huge in this game. Because SDSU, we play that bend don't break defense. Will we be able to, if we're going to give up yards? That's a given. NDSU is a good enough team that we're not going to just stonewall them. But are they going to get touchdowns or field goals? And I think that'll go a long way in determining the winner of this game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. What happens? Yeah, bend don't break. One of my favorite sayings for big, stout defensive teams. I think that's huge. I think before it escapes me, I think there is a lot of difference in the coach psyche of Matt Entz and Tim Paulsek. And I love Matt Entz, so I was a big supporter. But Matt Entz did do a poor job against SDSU, obviously with the record, but more so the mentality of things. Like, he did a poor job of like, we're just going to play Bison football. We're going to play our game. No, this is a game you got to like get up for. Like, it's okay to pretend it's a Super Bowl. It's okay to pretend or talk about how important this is. And I do know that Tim Paulsek is bringing Craig Bull energy back, at least to the locker room. Will that translate when you have, call it Brady swagger of Mark Gronowski and a SDSU team that's not going to fear the dome or situation at all? Probably not. But I think you will see a different mantra from the Bison team in terms of like how serious they're going to take this. Because that was a big thing with Craig Bull, like rivals. And this is more than just a game. So I think that's something that'll show up.
Yeah, and it's also why I think that a huge part will be how fast of a start SDSU can have. Because back in the day when NDSU was having, year after year they would beat us, we would get down early in the game and you could just feel the fans and the players just say, oh no, here we go again. And I think you could have that get in this game if SDSU has a fast start, like you said, with the dome getting deflated, and even the players, a lot of them have never beat SDSU. I don't know how many players are on the roster that have even beat SDSU anymore. Probably not many.
Boy, you'd 6-year seniors, I suppose,
Right.
maybe like the Winiski brothers and those. Maybe were they redshirt freshmen in 2019 when Trey Lance was running around? Probably. They weren't seeing the field. That's for sure.
Right. So yeah, I think just the start of this game is going to be huge. Who grabs the momentum first? And I think if NDSU does, I think SDSU shown the resilience that they will hang around. If SDSU grabs it, it'll be real interesting to see NDSU's resolve. To see, do they say, "Oh, geez, here we go again. SDSU is going to beat us again," or do they bounce back? So really interesting to see how that goes.
Watching Paulus Expresser and some of his stuff, I don't think that's going to be a thing. I don't see his teams having a lot of quit in them. I don't think he'll let that happen. But I do think there will be that energy in the dome, however, amongst the fan base. And that does matter. We've seen it happen. It happens in Brookings. We've seen that happen, and it does affect the game sometimes not positively when that uneasy energy is in the stadium. But it can work out as well if you do get a big play and that energy explodes from nerves into joy, then it's really tough. But yeah, this is, I think, the most interesting marker game in a couple of years, and it's going to be really fun. I just looked it up because
Probably
it was,
since COVID.
We were just talking about red zone, how important that is, red zone efficiency and everything. On offense, SDSU is number 10. On defense, NDSU is number 56. And then on red zone offense, on red zone offense, NDSU is 56. Sorry. Red zone. No, God, now I got it confused. Hold on. No,
NDSU
red
is
zone
really
offense.
high on the offense.
Yeah. Offense, they're in the 20s. They're 23. SDSU's offense is in the 70s.
There you go.
And then when you go to defense, SDSU's defense is number 10, and then NDSU's defense is 56. There it is. Good God, that was harder than it had to be.
No wonder Vegas has it minus 2.5.
And then,
right?
So, talk about dead, pretty darn dead even when you're, comparing them across to each other. The one that does concern me is the turnover ratio right now. If Cam Miller continues to play like he has this year, and throughout this year, boy, that's been a major factor in the last 5 games that the Jacks have managed to turn him over and create fumbles and create turnovers. Mark has never had a turnover against NDSU. Does that continue? I don't know. I've seen things out of Mark that I like going forward here, where he's starting to miss where defenders aren't, where before early in the season when he was off, he was missing short and things were getting picked off. So I think that's a good sign. But looking at the year, Mark's had more turnovers than he's ever had. So that's always one of the major things, but it's something definitely to keep an eye on this year. Because the energy in that dome is going to be crazy if turnover happens.
I think that run game has been key to Mark, and this is no insult. You beat NDSU by punching them in the mouth with the run game, controlling time of possession, and I think that has been key to. It's been key to Easton Stick when he would beat SDSU. It's been key to Carson Wentz when he beat SDSU. It's key to Mark Gronowski when he beats it the other way. And there might be moments here where Mark has to be that guy, like what if SDSU doesn't have those big popped runs? What if the NDSU defense is doing a good job of suffocating? I don't think that's going to occur consistently, but if it does for a quarter and a half, it's like, okay, we kind of need the pass to open up that run a little bit, can this year with the new weapons and the new stuff in that environment, can Mark elevate and get him there? I've got all the confidence in the world he can, as a big fan of him as a human. But I think that could be key if it's not as easy with Isaiah Isaiah Davis, Amar Johnson style. And I know Isaiah's not there. He's on the Jets. But, you know, that style of just like, bam, 6 yards, bam, 8 yards, bam, 4 yards. Okay, so that's going to be very interesting, I think.
Mark's going to have to make some key throws to win this game.
Yeah, I think
I'm
so.
100% sure of that. But now that we were sitting here talking, and I've been mulling over your question about time of possession, because that's been just rolling around in my mind. Part of it too is the Jacks haven't quite sustained drives like they did last year. Yes, we've been hitting huge explosive plays, but they haven't been quite sustaining drives. They would get a penalty or, you know, get behind the chains, whatever. Obviously, it hasn't slowed them down, but I wonder if I'm NDSU, do you sell out and try to force in the pass, or do you drop back and try to make a march down the field on you and see if you can get them to stall out that way? That is, if that's something they've noticed. I would think you'd try to stop the run game, force in the pass, but it is, we talked about that when the Jacks played USD last year. Half of their plays were explosive plays, make them march down the field, and that worked very well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting based off the first couple games to now with the NDSU. You know, those first couple games, the pressure was not being brought. There was a lot of strategic coverages and, you know, like, let's let the defensive line just try to win. And the edges were going way up. They weren't like, you know, they were just trying to beat their guy on the edge and get around to the QB, and the QBs were just stepping up. It was just kind of bad technique. It's been a lot more like solid stay, send a blitz, outside edge, corner comes. It's almost like you're just doing basic packages out of Madden. I don't think it's going to be anything too overly complicated. And SDSU, we'll see, can you beat the guy across from you? A game of inches. I think that's the NDSU Bison approach right now, with guys that are been in the program a long time, passionate about it, and some youth who are learning what to do. So I don't think you're going to face some complicated smoke and mirrors from the defense much against NDSU. What that does for SDSU, I'm not sure if it's an advantage or disadvantage, to be honest. But it's going to be interesting.
We have been remiss. We've talked for an hour and 17 minutes. We haven't talked about any of our segment sponsors, so I got to get them out here quick. Covey Sports Bar and Grill of Brookings, South Dakota, downtown Brookings. You know them, we know them, we all love them. They're on point with their specials every week. They're locked into what the team's doing, and so their special this week is a black and blue bison burger. Head down to Covey Sports Bar and Grill in Brookings, South Dakota. If you're not going to the game up in Fargo, run down to Cubby's and watch the game there. They will have you covered with it on every TV in the place, and that means it'll be on roughly 17,000 different TVs in the house. So Cubby Sports Bar and Grill, phenomenal Jackrabbit supporters with the Jimmy Rogers Show there every time, and huge support for South Dakota State athletics and South Dakota State in general. Thank you so much. Very proud to have them as a segment sponsor. And also Northwestern Mutual of Sioux Falls. Northwestern Mutual, if you've never met with a financial advisor before, I strongly recommend that you do, whether it's how much you put away in your 401k to having life insurance to having some sort of portfolio put together for you. You will have a weight taken off your mind that I promise you do not know is there, even if you're 22 years old. The sooner you do it, the sooner you'll be in good shape and the better off you'll be down the road. They don't cost anything. Go talk to Northwestern Mutual and Chris Schenkel in Sioux Falls. And on top of that, go to the Alex's Lemonade Stand Challenge and donate. Let's get Mark's numbers up. We raised a bunch of money this weekend with the pudding shots, but let's get Mark rocketing up the standings. You can go to fcsnationradio.com and click on Alex's Lemonade Stand, and then you'll be able to click on Mark Gronowski and donate in his honor. So go down to donate for Alex's Lemonade Stand, which is brought to you by Northwestern Mutual. It's a phenomenal thing they do. They also do the Lemonhead Challenge, and Northwestern Mutual is donating $10 for every photo you take with a lemon on your head. Hashtag Go Jacks and tag Northwestern Mutual and Alex's Lemonade Stand and Go Jacks Football to make sure that Mark gets those $10 added to his tally. And that's all the ad reads. Go ahead, guys.
I've got two things I'd like to say. Going back to what you were talking about with this team being a Polisek team versus the previous coaching staff, I think it was very obvious from the onset that this is more of what I will call, and I'm sure no one's going to argue with me on this, but the Bison football of old, right?
Oh, I
Yeah.
have to argue with.
It just did not look the same under Entz. And we're back to what it was, right? I mean, and to contradict that point is point number 2. The Bison always ran to open up the throw. But what they're doing this year is leaning on their talent with Cam Miller, and they're throwing to open up the run. And it's been very successful. And like Ben had said, my number one thing that I'm concerned about is our soft coverage over the middle. Those short throws, when our linebackers are crashing trying to prevent the run, we are somewhat susceptible to that. We've seen it from inferior teams, not teams that are completing at a 77% completion ratio, which is absolutely insane, by the way. If you don't get the player of the year, I guess it went to a running back. But yeah, those things, man, I think those are very key. I also think what we do with Chase Mason could be an X factor. I think, I know that Josh Hoffman asked, what do you fear the most? Like, who do you fear the most? What do you fear the most in this game, Matt? Maybe you could answer that. That comment's so far up that I can't really get to it. But if I'm the coaching staff at NDSU, Chase Mason's weighing heavily on my mind.
Yeah, in terms of like what NDSU would fear the most, boy, it might sound like a cop-out answer, but Mark Gronowski. Like my one part of me is like, well, just say running backs running up the middle like they always do. No, Mark Gronowski is the thing. This guy is the glue to the program. This is very Brady-ish. Like, he's the glue. He's avoided the portal. He's kept this whole unit together. He's got swagger and things that make that whole operation go. And if Gronowski gets a 12-yard run, he's going to do horns down, stand up, get the huddle together, and Bison, like, oh, here we go. He's going to make that throw on third down. He's going to do all the little intangible small things that no one will give Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady credit for because they think it's a system. And he operates that thing moving forward. I saw it with Easton Stick. I saw it with other quarterbacks where that is the difference. And Mark Gronowski making him uncomfortable and stopping him, I think, is just as key as the running game. Like, completely stopping the core, the core of what that offense is. And it operates around Mark Gronowski getting him uncomfortable. So I think his mantra that he brings and everything is what Bison fans fear, because we've seen it. We've seen when the quarterback has it. Now, I think Cam's got that this year, but I would say that would be the biggest fear thing. And in terms of, I'm going to compliment the heck out of SDSU here. But honestly, we've said the last 3 years, we'd see a slant pass by you guys for your receiver on a one-on-one with a corner, and we'd be like, why can't we do that? They just got 7 yards. Can we just throw a slant pass? We threw it in elementary school. And what Jake Landry has done as the offensive coordinator, that's what has changed really with Cam Miller, is they'll open it up, they'll make a quick audible, and like, if it's there, it's there, they're going to take it. And it reminds me of SDSU. I'm like, look at these passing concepts. Here come the twin brothers. Oh my goodness. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? They're actually doing it this year, and it's showing to be effective. So yeah, you guys always said we kind of had to do NDSU things to beat NDSU. Well, NDSU offensively, they got to do Gronowski and SDSU things with Cam to have a shot against you. So I'm glad you brought that point up, Chad. Because that was something I wanted to get across for sure. And we'll see how it goes. Battle of the quarterbacks. That's how I feel. I think it's going to be a QB thing. So,
yeah, I mean, it's fitting. These guys have battled for going on 5 years now. Mark's had Cam's number, and they were talking about that on the Bison Report, whether, Cam thinks about that. Does he think about how he hasn't beat SDSU yet? Maybe, it might be in the back of his mind, if he throws an interception or something like that, does it start to spiral a little bit on him and say, oh, here we go again? So yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to just the early success key to this game is who takes the momentum first, and how does that go? But being that we're pushing an hour and a half here, let's get to predictions. For the betting line, tune in on Thursday night. We'll have Scare Money, Don't Make Money again at 8:30 to talk about the spreads for all the Missouri Valley games, including this one. But Matt will not be there. So, Matt, you told us to wait on the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Here's your time. What's your prediction?
Well, first I'll just say that the Jim Poppins and the humans that are commenting, I can see him over here, and I really appreciate all of you guys as STSU fans, and just as humans. I've gone to Frisco, I've seen you guys in tailgate lots, and you guys are just incredibly generous, kind people. And I like South Dakota State fans. I don't think you get much of anyone who complains about you. So just thankful to have so many good people in the thing. And yeah, I said on the podcast every year, this game's going as long as you guys will have me. I'll predict it right here. A little bit of history on my predictions, I guess. I've done this for 4 years. Year number 1 was the spring season. Yep. And I say it every year. The only reason I picked NDSU that year was because of tradition, history, and it's in the dome. And I remember telling Brennan afterwards, I'm never going off of stupid reasons ever again. Once I decided to not go off emotion and stupid reasons, Kyler's never been happier right now because I'm going off some facts. I've predicted SDSU to win in 2021. I predicted them to win 2022. Now, 2021, I said they'd win, but NDSU would go further in the playoffs. That was clutch. And then 2023, I was like, this will be a slaughter. NDSU will get their butt kicked. So I'm 3 for 1 picking the Jacks in the last 4 years. This game to me is going to be really close. I don't see how this game gets out of hand by either side. And that's from someone who's thought the last 3 years would kind of be very off center. Cam Miller's injury, we don't know what it's going to look like, but if it's not 100%, it is going to affect him a little bit. I think the defensive line injury and some of the other things will have some of their factors. I think NDSU is going to have some pretty incredible edges from what Paul Seck's going to bring in terms of the mental game. The swagger NDSU is going to walk out there. NDSU is going to want this. Their offense looks so good. But SDSU, I said this on the last podcast. It was like 3 podcasts ago on FCS Fans Nation. Who would win the championship? Who would be number 1 if you had to pick it? And, Kyler said Montana State, and I think Central Arkansas was mentioned. And we hadn't gotten a lot of SDSU questions at that point. And I was like, let me just go through SDSU. I think Ben, Chad, Brendan's, and others just want perfection because what I see on Twitter of the struggles of SDSU sure doesn't match their statistics. They look incredibly good on defense, incredibly good on offense. Well, he could be better. Yeah, who couldn't be better from last year and how good you guys were? I don't think the drop-off is as much as it is. I think Mark Gronowski will have a good game, and I don't know if NDSU's tackling is quite up there to par. I'd love to go on outside factors, but I am going to take South Dakota State 24, NDSU 20 in the border battle, and we will see you in the semis or Frisco. There you go.
There it is.
I was hoping
the long, much-awaited prediction.
I don't know why, but I was really hoping you were going to choose
psychopath for the opposite of my prediction. But the unbiased buys and admin, I'll take the Jacks 24-20 in a classic.
I like it.
One thing go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, I'll be up there. I'll find you at the tailgate. We have a long time to tailgate. I might text you for some advice for Friday night and Saturday morning, but I'll find you up there. And then regardless of how it goes, we'll go enjoy Dayseeker and the other bands in Minneapolis on Sunday night. So
yeah, I'm going to bring my alpha wolf screaming for the dome as best I can. Oh, and if real quick, sorry, I know we're going a long time. Yeah, Seth Meyer, you are incredible. Seth Meyer brought me this hat in Frisco. He's amazing. So the quality is incredible. I do wear it sometimes on the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Thanks again, Seth. You are incredibly kind. Hopefully I can get you back down there in Frisco. So,
if you told me that one of our avid listeners got you that hat and I had to pick who it was, Seth Meyer would have been one of the first ones I picked because that's just his style.
It's
Jim would be high on that
beautiful.
list too.
Yeah.
Jim would be high on the list because he's a very, very giving, caring soul.
Carter,
You
quit being so complimentary, Fraase. I should come on this sometime and just be a complete asshole one of these years.
just make everybody's jaws hit the floor because you are probably one of
How-
the nicest people I've ever met.
Stop.
How well can you play Kyler? That's what I want to know.
Let's see
Oh.
the Kyler Neal impression.
Like, yeah.
You stink. No, that's Jamie Williams.
Yeah, Jamie Williams is stink.
Yeah.
I would be like, I don't give a shit. Big Sty sucks. I can't even do it. Yeah.
Right.
If you throw in some swear words and something like that, you've got Kyler down.
Give us a quick recommendation for the Jacks fans that are going up to Fargo. We'll have some extra time on Friday night or Saturday. Where do we go eat or what do we go do?
Yeah, absolutely. So things are downtown Fargo. I maybe it's a cop out, but that has been one of the revitalizations of Fargo. It was one of the big things for Governor Burgum is like getting downtowns and things revitalized. I now live outside of Fargo, but when I go down there for work, there's so many good spots. I don't even know if I could just recommend one, but you could go all the way from Worst Beer Hall to American Dining. And it's really nice down there. Even the back alleys of these old buildings are like ice cream shops and yogurt shops, like with paintings on the walls. It's a whole different world down there. So I guess if you want to get your different, I'd go downtown Fargo. But as Kyler and them know, and I see Bradley's comment here, I'm a Chili's and Texas Roadhouse franchise guy. So my recommendation of where I would go, and Ben, my wife said that for Dayseeker. I was like, we're going to go downtown Minneapolis. She's like, we could get Chili's. I'm like, sweet. This is why I married you.
Are you a baby back ribs
so
guy,
Midwestern.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh man, maybe we'll meet up for dinner on Sunday night. I'll find you somewhere better than Chili's.
Yeah.
Nobody loves chain restaurants like Fargoans.
Yeah, no, Fargo's, they love it. Toasted Frog though is one I will say. Downtown Fargo, Toasted Frog, burgers, other things. That's been a solid one I've gone to a few times. And Spicy Pie, if you want pizza, is really good.
Worst Beer Hall is really cool if you want an authentic beer hall from Germany. That kind of vibe. It's definitely good.
And they have a second one that's not downtown. If you're trying to not be downtown in West Fargo. I also recommend, having lived there, and if you like authentic Mexican food, Tacos Trampo is phenomenal. I love that place. They'll even have like La Lengua tacos occasionally and stuff, and it's phenomenal. I love that place. I suppose I should talk about the game. The only thing worse would have been Applebee's, where you pay them to microwave your food. No, there's a Mexican restaurant, one of the chains in Fargo that I went to. Now, I ordered seafood nachos, which maybe that's a weird order. I love seafood, Mexican food, man. Love it. And you know what they gave me? They gave me a plate of tortilla chips with fake crab that they sprinkled cheese on and microwaved. And I was baffled. I'd never seen anything like that. I was like, this is Brendan in his 20s drunk food at 3 a.m. What is this? Anyways, a lot of great places to go in Fargo is the moral of the story. I don't have a prediction yet. I've been hemming and hawing. I will predict we probably see this showdown again unless one of the teams trips up in Bozeman. Although it is theoretically possible that USD trips up one of us. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired of the Valley making SDSU play the Marker game and then the USD game back to back. That is 5 years in a row. That it's on purpose now. Like it's too many times to be a coincidence. This is on purpose. And this year it will matter because this is going to be a physical, drawn out, beat down, bash out fight while USD is getting to slap around Youngstown State. And that very well could have an effect on that game. So that'll be interesting. But I'm with you, Matt. I think it's going to be a super close game down to the wire. Let's be honest, almost every game in Fargo, unless NDSU is winning, has been down to the wire, even. I honestly, that building I think is worth 6 points, and with how revved up that crowd's going to be, it might be worth 7 or 8, especially if they get a bunch of false starts. I think this might be the loudest Fargo Dome's been since that Georgia Southern game of old, of yore. Now that you guys are finally getting sick of us, it's about time.
Yeah, there's a feeling of defending too. Like we want Cam to get this. You know what I mean? Like these 6-year, like last year, which you guys had guys coming back on a mission when they could have left. I don't think NDSU, maybe one of those 6-year seniors didn't come back. Like they're back to give it one more shot to get the Bison back on top. And I think this game's going to mean a lot to him. And you got a coach who, when he first came up here to NDSU, had no money in his pocket and slept in the dome. And that's who, like basically couldn't get a house. And that sort of physical, like that's where the roots he came from, the hard work ethic. I mean, that's what he's putting into it. Not saying it's going to translate to a win as I picked SDSU, but the mentality will be different. The crowd's going to embrace it. It's going to be fun. And if you guys come away with the victory, it'll feel good. So it's going to be fun to watch.
And that, that's part of what makes this game fun is knowing Polasek knows the roots of this and is that as intense as he is, having Jimmy Rogers be Jimmy Rogers. I mean, when you're quoted in an ESPN article about it saying, I've never touched the trophy because I want to watch them leave the field without it. That is probably the coldest line about a rivalry game I've ever heard. And if you listen to Jimmy's radio show this week, he said, you can scheme as much as you want, but this game always comes down to who wants it more.
Yeah.
Talent and everything be damned. There's been years where SDSU in the past, wasn't as talented or as whole of a team as NDSU and has pulled off the win in this game. It truly is a throw the records out, and you don't have to throw the records out in this one because they're the same. It's 1 versus 2. This is everything. Most rivalries dream of this, like the Brawl of the Wild, for instance. They probably dream of having a 1 versus 2 matchup. It hasn't probably ever happened because, one of them's got to be mediocre. I'm just poking Ron in the ribs.
And a sellout crowd, a loud stadium. Those are all things like they really wish they had out there. Those are things.
Dreams. Yeah.
Dreams. Yeah.
Yeah,
it'll be real fun. Somebody mentioned the game being in prime time, which it is cool as hell that it's at 7 p.m. on ESPN2, by the way. But it would be a lot cooler if it was outside because it might as well be 7 a.m.
Literally,
nobody knows what time it is.
Way cooler than 70 degrees.
It would be
literally way cooler. All right.
Well, with that, I think we better wrap this up.
I had one more question that
for it.
is not game specific with Matt, because you talked about the crowds and stuff, and I just had a bunch of comments on Twitter about it. Obviously your crowds are great, but they've had a little bit of a dip recently, and you mentioned some of it's the age of the fan base. Do you think, I personally believe from an outside observer perspective, it is incredibly unhelpful to have your media kicking and screaming and saying that the FCS is no good, none of these games are good except for the marker, nobody's competition, and what are we even doing here? Basically telling them it's not worth the price of admission and time of investment. Do you think that has had, I can't feel it has had anything besides a negative impact on attendance for a game? Because if you're a casual fan and your media is telling you that, well, none of these games are any good, I don't know if I'd spend the money for a ticket. I think that'd sway me. Do you think that's had some, I feel like it's had more of an effect than they recognize?
I think it has had an impact. I don't know if it's as huge. I think NDSU got too big for its britches through success. That's been my take. Correct me if I'm wrong, but SDSU puts out a game where you guys, the tickets at the lowest price are like $5 or $10, and then they can use NCAA rules for playoff games to have low cost tickets. NDSU doesn't change that. I looked up Drake or whoever we played for round 1 last year. I was going to take my boys over Thanksgiving weekend. It's like $35 plus fees for a ticket. To what, by the second quarter to be up by Drake by 40 points plus, that's 160 with popcorn, whatever outing. I mean, NDSU has made it tougher to enter the dome, City of Fargo, with all those metal detectors. They've made tailgating extremely restrictive. And if you start to lose or this and that, and the experience to go is not as great, and it costs a lot of money in tough times for folks, I think that has more of its impacts. In terms of the intensity of the crowd, UND, it was pretty solid. It was pretty solid. So I don't think the media helps, of course. I don't think Matt Frase's tweeting that I want to go to the Mountain West helps. But I don't think that's as much as like, could you get a family there for $10 a pop, or hand out tickets at Subway or Stop and Go, rest in peace, like they used to. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things they could do besides, well, you're going to pay your team maker fees and walk through the door. So I think that's kind of a thing. So
that is something SDSU did really well, even though they did raise season ticket prices in the stadium the year they did that. They actually dropped the season ticket prices in our section. We happen to be in the cheapest section there, but they kept a very cheap option available for season tickets for people.
Yeah, you guys are playing chess with that stuff, where NDSU played checkers, and it's not easy. You know, pay that much in daycare and everything else for all these humans, and then be like, oh, go to $120 game on the weekend to play whoever. So, but I think the turnout will be really good here, and it should be fun and intense. And I know we're coming at the end of it. I just really want to say thank you guys for having me on this. I have a lot of fun, win or lose. Just really respect you guys in the fan base of SDSU. Excited to see you guys in Frisco, hopefully no matter what. And Ben for Dayseeker. And hopefully both teams go away healthy. And then I just want to say to anyone who's listening to this now or later, I hope you guys just really understand how thankful you should be for these humans who run this podcast. Because like, I see the data and how many people watch it in this, but it's time away from families, kids, and they put so much work into like that Frisco tailgate. They put so much work into the production of this. And I know there's, you know, you got bills and other things, and they're paying for microphones and headsets, and it's such high quality work. So any way you can support these guys, I just really hope SDSU fans continue to do that for you guys, because it's fun to watch, and I'm really glad we have this. Even as a Bison fan, I learned a lot from your article today. So appreciate y'all, and I appreciate you having me. So
that's all the Podfather with the articles. He's a killer on that. Thank you so much for the kind words. And obviously we're on your network that you have built for years and years and years. And so I know everything you say is from the heart, because you have to deal with the same stuff, especially with a bunch of young boys. So, and that's why we so appreciate you being on here, especially when you're doing extra things like guard for the Air Force and everything. You know, we really appreciate that, because I know when that gets added on, it's even extra time. Plus doing something like this, it's even harder. So thank you so much for taking 2 hours of your night. Didn't mean to do that on you.
It's easy to sit and talk with Matt, isn't it?
No,
it is.
8:30 was perfect. Got the Allison's like 6:30, 8:30. I'm like 8:30. She's like, all right, you put the boys down. I'm like, you got it. So
done. Perfect.
Thanks, Matt, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thanks for all you do for all the FCS fans around the nation. I know they appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll see you there. And then Ben, see you at the show.
Sounds good. As Jim says, as we always say, go big, go blue,
go Jacks.